And we're live! Hello, citizens, and welcome back to the Comm Relay. Today with my co-host Maggie the cat. She decided that she didn't get enough cuddles this weekend, so she's gonna be joining us on the show for a little bit. Uh, Today, after a bit of a break due to technical and exhaustion reasons, uh, side note on that, my graphics card is okay. Now I replaced the fan that was damaged, and it seems to be working. Fingers crossed and knock on wood. It's going to keep working for a little bit longer. But today, we're going to be talking about and yes, the cat is very clingy. Both of them were. Because yes, if you haven't heard the announcement, I adopted a second cat last weekend. Maybe she will make an appearance on the show at some point, but right now she's sleeping on the heater in the living room. Uh, Anyway, so today I want to talk about a pretty important topic and something that I think needs to be covered given the Thursday Star Citizen Live, and that's focus on playability. Because at CitizenCon we had that promise by Chris Roberts that 2025 is going to be a year focused on playability. And it has sort of dawned on me since then, and especially given the performance of 4.0 preview and then 4.0 live. Side note, we're going to have a full video on that tomorrow. And then sort of the follow-up stuff we had by Jarrett and Benoit on Thursday on SC Live. I kind of realized that CIG never actually talked about what they meant by playability, or Chris Roberts never actually said what they mean. He just said, "Yeah, we want you to be able to play the game," which is great for everybody. But focus on playability. What does that mean? And yes, we have seated ourselves correctly, and we can now. So, if for those of you listening on Spotify after this, if you hear a cat purring, that's exactly why, because there is a cat sitting on top of me right now and she's purring. Anyway, and a second side note for those of you listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any other podcast platform of choice, drop a follow on the podcast if you haven't already, because we have a lot of viewers who are returning listeners on the podcast and not following it, which kind of breaks my metrics. Ow. Okay, I guess we're done with cuddles for tonight. I will cover the cat butt so it's not on camera. Anyway, so focus on playability. So I don't think CAG ever talked about what they meant by playability, and I think the idea of playability is very different for every player out there. For me, and my benchmark for playability has always been very low, and it basically always was, I can log in without issues, I can leave my hab, I can accept a mission, and I can complete it and get the reward. Basically, think of it as an end-to-end test of Star Citizen. And my camera is glitching out. Stand by. Better? There we go. Yeah, sorry about that. It sometimes does that when I turn it on. It just glitches out, and then I have to just deactivate and activate in OBS, and it fixes itself. Anyway, so that's my benchmark. I can log in, complete a mission, get the reward, and log out or make it back to the hab. And to me, that is kind of a very basic benchmark of, does the game work? And depending on what mission you're taking on this, it's gonna take maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and that's gonna be your basic game session. But obviously that's not really enough, because that's sort of a one-person solo gameplay benchmark type situation, and it kind of goes off a acceptable mission that you can accept in game. So the question then becomes, how do you extend this to sort of a format or form that covers more of the game? So you can start looking at different gameplay loops and say, okay, I can log in, I can take my salvage ship, and I can go salvage and bring in the cargo and sell it. And then you're suddenly adding more stuff to it. You're adding random generation if you're going after panels or destroyed ships. You are testing cargo features because you have to manipulate the cargo in your cargo hold, put it on the elevator, store the elevator, and then sell it at the terminal in the city. And by extension, you actually test the public transport system, which is great, but you're still sort of going on a individual basis, and that doesn't really give you a whole lot of data as for playability. And we will get to how to convert this into data in a moment. So you kind of have to start looking at, because Star Citizen is all about multi-crew and playing as a group. So then you can start looking at, oh, I can actually log in with a group of friends. We can party up from the menu. We can join together. It's going to launch us together. We're going to end up in the same shard. We're going to have party markers. We can spawn a ship. We can, visit each other's elevators, or not elevators, the hangars. And we can go and we can do some activity together. If that's mining, salvage, ship combat, FPS combat. A big one was contested zones with 4.0. A lot of people are going out as a group and doing contested zones for the rewards. So that's your sort of group benchmark. And from there, you're only sort of building on it with, okay, we have finished the mission or we have finished the activity. Can we now go and do another activity as a follow-on? And then finally, you're looking at okay, we have completed our activity. We have gained items, we have gained money, we have gained reputation. Is this going to persist? And that was the other issue coming out with 401, where progress and items and all this stuff didn't persist from preview to live, even though it was promised in the original preview announcement that the progress from preview is going to go into live. And actually that's kind of a good segue into what happened with 4.0. Why did it go so wrong? And I'm going to reiterate some of these points in the video tomorrow, but might as well get it out now on stream and on podcast. I see sort of two failures or two sets of failures with 4.0. Number one was kind of the planning error. 4.0, it came out on like the 18th, 19th, or 20th of December, the preview. So you're kind of putting out a major patch right before holiday, where all of your developers, all of your staff are going to go away for holiday, which is never good. That's why we never do releases on Fridays or before holidays, and we have release freezes at normal software companies. Because then you either have a bad release and there's nobody to fix it, and you sort of upset your customers, or you force your developers to stay and work overtime over holidays, which, number one, it's terrible for staff morale. A lot of companies don't realize this. If you make your staff work overtime, they will leave eventually. That's why so many software companies get very high turnover, because they work their developers to the bone, and they will jump at the first opportunity of, oh, I'm going to work 40 hours a week only. Sure, sign me up. Like, a lot of developers will be like this, especially guys who have families or want to do something outside of work. They will definitely be looking for that. Then the second problem is it's expensive. Pretty much no matter which country you're in, overtime costs money. You have to pay either salary or some multiplier of salary for overtime, or specifically for CIG, because they're in the UK, they have the option of giving their employees time off, like paid time off, in exchange for overtime. which is fine as well, in my opinion. My company does this as well because we're a UK-based company. But the problem with that is, at least in my opinion, and why I never do this personally, is that yes, you get time in lieu of overtime, but there is sort of no deadline on when you have to use it. And paid time off usually resets at the start of the year. So my assumption is that if you're not using it by the end of the year, it's gone. And given, depending on the workload of the company you're at, you might not have a chance to take that time off. And I believe at CIG that might be an emerging problem. Whether it is, I could not tell you. It's one of the things I should have asked at CitizenCon when I was talking to all the devs, and I didn't, but I should have. But I doubt they would give me an answer, because that's usually stuff that's covered by an NDA. But still, would have been good to know. So that might create a separate problem for you. And then, if you're making your staff work overtime over holidays, there's usually a lot of context switching when you're putting out fires, and you're very likely doing it from home, and your family wants stuff, your kids want stuff. It might not be easy. You might actually end up producing more problems than you're fixing, depending on what the release and testing process is, obviously. And the other option is, you leave the build up, you leave the release up, and you let it burn. And this is going to... Oh yeah, that's how I usually work with a cat on my keyboard. So, you have a bad release, which inherently it's not bad. Like it's not hurting your development, but it's hurting your customer base, or in our case, the community. And then people get very angry on Spectrum, which I guess it's fair, it's deserved. It's definitely a valid outlet for people to go and complain on Spectrum. It's just that I feel like this could have been avoided if 4.0 preview went out after New Year's, even if it was in the same state. On the other hand, I have to commend CIG on releasing a lot of hotfixes very quickly. I mean, we were week 2 of January and they already had hotfixes going out. So people hit the ground running when they came from holiday, which I really appreciate, and I am very impressed by this. Not many software companies can pull this off. Have that very quick ramp up from a holiday. At my previous job, it would be like all of January would be very slow, because we would still be like missing half the people, and everyone would still be kind of groggy from holidays. But CIG managed very well. And that kind of brings us to sort of the technical aspect of what they did, or what was wrong with 4.0. And so number one, I don't think it was tested properly, but that's not entirely the fault of CIG, or not really anyone's fault. The problem usually is that, and we see this with pretty much every patch that goes from PTU to live, is that it works pretty well in the PTU, but then it hits live and things either don't work or they very quickly deteriorate over 2-3 weeks, where it becomes unplayable, and then kind of the follow-on 0.1 patch comes out, and that usually fixes things. And I think that can be attributed to two things. Number one, player volume, because in the PTU, you will usually have a lot less players logging into the game. I would like to see the numbers on that, to be honest. But I would say, in my observation, it's maybe about 30 to 40% of live player counts. But I would like to know what CIG have on this. And two, the game has a lot of low-level issues. And not low-level in complexity, but low-level in... There was a bunch of memory leaks everywhere. Which, for those of you who are not developers, or have not worked with languages that require active memory management, a memory leak happens when a program is allocating RAM for something, and it's not freeing it afterwards. Why does this happen, and why does this only happen with some programming languages? First, let's talk about what it means to allocate memory for something. So in some languages, if you want to store something dynamically, you have to allocate memory for it. Some languages being C, C++, which C++ is actually what Star Citizen is written in on the backend, because it runs, well, Star Engine is based on Lumberyard, which is the Amazon version of CryEngine, and all of these they use C++, and C++ requires manual memory management. So every time you want to allocate memory for an object or a string or an array of something, you have to call a explicit command that gives you certain amount of memory allocation that you can use. And then when you're done with this memory allocation, you have to free it manually. There are ways around this in C++, but I don't know if CH are not using them or they're forgetting to use them. But generally, you have to explicitly say, okay, I am done with this memory. You can put it back on the heap. And CIG, or Star Citizen, has a lot of issues with this. For those of you who visited Orison in 4.0 preview and 4.0 live or 4.01 live, you might have noticed that Orison would occasionally crash your game. That's because there was a memory leak in Orison. I don't know the specifics because I didn't look into it, but there was a memory leak about something that was happening in Orison, and it would eventually make the game run out of memory, which would then crash the game because your operating system will not allow programs to allocate more than X memory, which is a operating system feature. And that kind of brings us to, why is this not a problem with everything? Well, some programming languages, like I believe Java also does this, but in my specific case, .NET or C#, they have automated memory management. So, or automated trash collection, or garbage collection is what we call it. Because once you're done, it's kind of a programming term. Well, once you're done with the memory, it's garbage. So you have a garbage collector collect all your garbage after you. So in .NET, this happens automatically, or in C#, where if you have a scoped variable or scoped object which requires dynamic allocation, the memory or the garbage collector will dispose of that used memory automatically. And this greatly simplifies everything that you're doing with it, just by not having to do it explicitly. Though I will admit as a developer that there is some beauty in manual memory management, because then you are in very explicit control of what's happening in your code, which is very nice sometimes, especially for performance intensive applications, because you have to understand that when you're doing automated garbage collection and you're freeing up that memory automatically, that garbage collection happens with a delay. So you might already be several cycles after the thing that needed the memory, and only then you're freeing it. And also you need a separate process to be freeing that memory, which might have some performance implications, but that's more of a philosophical debate. And I don't want to get into that, because that's what my architect is for at work, to get into philosophical debates about code. Anyway, so furthermore, CIG released that patch sort of relatively untested, and we saw a lot of issues where, with very basic stuff really, we saw issues with elevators, and I feel like elevators have become a near constant issue with every single patch we're getting, and I feel like it's elevators. Like, it should be fairly easy to test this somehow, to make sure that whatever build we're putting out has functional elevators. Even if we're going to have a guy log in a dozen times and be like, do the elevators work? And just like goes to a location and calls every elevator at a location and sees if the elevator shows up. And I feel like, this is a pretty independent block of code that could be unit tested. I might be wrong. CAG, if you're listening or watching, feel free to get in my inbox with an explanation on why is this not testable. And then, for me, more critically, because we saw a lot of people who were just flat out unable. Well, if they were testing only the elevators, that would like take care of half the issues. Anyway, and the second thing, which in my mind was a more important problem with 4.0, was that a lot of people could not log in the first place, or a lot of people would be locked to a shard that was already dead, and they could not log into anything else. Which I feel like is, again, a scenario that could be tested somehow, even if we're just writing an integration test on the service that manages, session logging in. So, because I imagine there is a service somewhere in the shard that manages, or not even the shard, it should be over all the shards that, manages which shard the player is going into when they're logging in, a matchmaking service. So I imagine that should be testable, and it should be a scenario that should be looked into. And generally, we saw a lot of issues with persistent storage, with items not persisting, ships not persisting, hangars bugging out. Which I think, a lot of this should be testable in a controlled environment. And CAG do actually have a lot of QA staff, quality assurance staff, that could be, even if manually, looking into this. So, hello. The cat has returned. Okay, come here. Come here, little cat. Well, sits. Okay, there we go. Sits. Anyway, so. Well, yes, she went to eat, and now she wants more cuddles. Yes. Boop. Yeah. So, and that kind of brings us to what metrics can CIG collect to assess the state of the game? Because you might notice, or you might not know about it, but CIG has a telemetrics page, which tells you sort of the average FPS and loading time per build. It actually has a very nice looking heat map, and you can actually get to it from the main page through development and then telemetry. And it actually tells you how your system compares to sort of the average and sort of the general range of specs that are available to them. And we also know that they are collecting a lot of logs from the server. So how can they leverage this to understand what sort of session quality players are having? And why are we talking about session quality? Because what you might have seen if you were reading Spectrum or listening to people around 4.0 and 4.01, you might have noticed that there was a very inconsistent experience between people. So you had people who, like myself, who couldn't log in. Like I could not play the game for a month. But then you also had people who, were having some issues, but could play, and then you had people who had absolutely no problems playing. And this is just kind of like a very, very high discrepancy, if you look at it as data. And I, as a developer, I would like to know, why is this happening? Is it something that's bound to a region? Like maybe the EU servers are not working or the US servers are not working. If so, why? Is the configuration different? Is like the servers, or is the hardware configuration different? Because they are in a different data center. If you don't know, Star Citizen is running on AWS, pretty much like everything else right now. And they have, I believe, servers in Frankfurt in Europe, And I'm not sure where they have servers in the US, but I think they have 2 locations in the US, and then they have a location somewhere in Asia, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I know that with certainty they have a server in Frankfurt. So, if that's what we're looking at, like, what is the hardware difference between those servers, or what is the configuration difference between those virtual machines they were running on? So, or what if it's, shard based, which we saw some shards that were completely broken. We saw some shards that were working perfectly. So if it's only some shards, why are these shards different? What's wrong with them? How long they have been up? Is there a correlation between how long a shard has been alive and how many issues it's experiencing? Is it the correlation between how many players are on or not? So what would be a good metric to gather here? And so right now there is no way to in-game be like, I'm seeing a bug, like a button that says report a bug because something's not working. So you can't really use that explicit way of having the player report this from in-game. So you don't have that data unless, they will have the session information QR code on screen. They take a screenshot and they go to issue council and they post that screenshot. That's obviously one way they could do it, and you should be doing it as a player. So, but what else can you do on sort of CIG sites, sort of implicit metrics gathering? I figure you could look at playtime per session per player. So let's say if you have a player that requests a login to a shard, so you take metrics on how long did it take for this person to log into the game, and then that kind of gives you the average time of how long it takes to connect to a shard. So what can you do next? Okay, the player has logged in, so let's see how long they are in the session and what they do, like how many actions they take in this session. So if you have a player who has broken elevators, they will log into a shard, they will walk out of their hab, go to the elevator, and see that the elevator is broken. So you might have a session connected time under 5 minutes. And then that player is going to go, cool, I'm going to try another server. So they're going to log out. So you're going to measure that time between logging in and logging out from a session. And if you're seeing a shard or a region where you have a high number of sort of these very short sessions, under 5 minutes, then there is a problem with either connecting to the session or progressing with the game. Because essentially by giving players that elevator that needs to be navigated before you can continue your journey from the hab to whatever activity you want to do, then you're very quickly sort of gatekeeping players if that's broken. So that would be what I'm looking at. Next, I would be looking at abandoned contracts, because if you go do a mission and the contract is abandoned, then that might tell you, let's say someone accepts a mission, they have it for a half hour, and then they abandon it. That might mean there is an issue. But obviously you have to look at this not from the point of view of a singular incident, but from a group of incidents. So you kind of have to gather logs, and then you have to sort of aggregate and identify frequent issues, frequent reports, and that kind of stuff. So what else can you do? So what else can you do with logging? Obviously, they can look at ship claims. And that's actually a very solid indicator, in my opinion. And they even mentioned this at CitizenCon, that most ships are claimed without being destroyed. So that's what that would be the next thing I'm looking at. Like if I have a server where a lot of ships are being claimed, clearly there is some issue going on. especially if it's multiple ships being claimed across multiple players. That might either be, oh, the hangars are broken, or because it pulls out two ships at once, or it doesn't stow one of the ships and makes them unknown, or players are losing their ships because they're being kicked out of their ship while they're in quantum. Either of those things could happen. And then they also have ASOP errors that are explicit. So that should, in my opinion, also you might have seen it where ship cannot be retrieved because of reasons. So that's something I would be logging, because if a ship cannot be retrieved, that will usually mean there is a problem with the hangar system or with the ATC. And speaking of ATC, you can probably actually be looking at the ATC wait times. And you see I have a player who is repeatedly requesting to be put in the ATC queue. That could mean maybe the doors are not opening for them, or that kind of stuff. So issue with instance hangars. Oh, I'm thirsty. Oops, sorry about that. So there are actually a lot of metrics that CIG can gather, but that's going to give them a lot of raw data, and they need to be looking at that data and processing it somehow to figure out what is, what are the pain areas, what needs to be fixed, and maybe determine if a shard needs to be restarted. And a good indicator for that is, we had 100 session connects and then disconnects in 5 minutes on one shard. And that might be a good indicator, yes, the shard population is low. Okay, we're going to restart that shard. And or spin it down completely and spawn a new one in its place when it's needed. And it actually looks like we have a guest. Pacey is here. All right, I'm going to drag him in. Yeah. All right, Pacey, you are dragged in and you're unmuted. Can we hear you?
Hey, hello everyone. Hello.
Oh yeah, we can hear you. Perfect. Hello and welcome on the show for the first time.
I'm the first time here, so thank you for having me.
Well, I know you were in the chat and on YouTube, and you're appreciated, but I think it's your first time as a guest.
Correct? Yeah, as a guest, yes. Yeah. I was hanging around at the streams and the videos for sure.
Yeah. No, when you get a chance, fill out the survey that we have for the content. It's very important. And
survey?
Oh yeah, I posted it in general this morning, and I will have to do it again. It's so me and my social media manager, we put together a survey on how to improve my content, and it's a lot of questions. It's very long. It got very out of hand, out of hand. And,
okay. I'm gonna check it out. Just 6 pages, so.
Yeah. It's I was trying to split it up, thematically, so there's some kind of progression to it. But the fun part is that you get a thank you. So if you fill it out, this is your advance thank you. Your input is very appreciated, and I cannot wait to read it. And 2, I'm going to pick 5 people who responded to it. And I'm going to send them a special merch item that is going to be a surprise. I know what it's going to be, but it's going to be a surprise for you guys.
Okay, sounds interesting.
It's going to be fun and useful. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's
if you
definitely going to check it out.
If you don't laugh, if you get it, and when you get it, then I don't know what's wrong with you, because it is very funny. Anyway, so Pacey, so what are your thoughts on the playability and stability of 4.0 and the promise to focus on playability in 2025? And I don't know if you watched the Star Citizen Live on Thursday or if you saw some recap. So what are your thoughts on what Jared and Benoit said in that show on what they want to do, how they want to fix what's going on right now?
Yeah, I watched the first half. It's a little bit longer, so I have to watch the second half. But what I heard and how it sounds to me is that they're approaching things from a different angle, different approaches. these Joker cards that were talked about that they can use to finish stuff. Um, so very interesting to me. Playability, a very interesting factor for me. I was not able to enjoy Star Citizen at all for the last years. I'm kind of a mid-range PC gamer right now, saving up for some PC builds maybe this year. But till now, it was not that I was really enjoying Star Citizen at maybe what I watched in streams or other contents. Yeah,
Yeah.
for myself. So first, when I joined back in 2021, end of 2021, I hardly did get 7 FPS, yeah, or 10 or 15, something like that. So
2021.
uh,
I wonder what big features came out in 2021.
I just remember that I spawned at Port Olisar.
Oh yeah, we still had Porto back then.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, Seraphim is a very recent addition.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think 2021 was like all planets, all landing zones, or maybe New Babbage had just come out, and
Yes, yes.
we were having like a lot of performance issues with.
Yes, and then I enlisted. Yeah, I didn't. I did try just a free fly, but yeah, I didn't have that confidence that my PC can run it. Yeah,
Yeah,
back then. Then I joined half a year back for a free flight. Just wanted to check it out again for Invictus, and then I backed the game actually, and yeah, I think 2023 was the was for 3.17 or something. It was quite a stable patch for me back then. I enjoyed exploring just outside on the skirts of Microtech somewhere. Yeah, since I got a little bit more FPS, yeah, I was just flying around. Doing stuff was a little bit harder for me on the performance wise. So yeah, so now, right now, I joined the 4.0.1, and actually I have a decent amount of frames, even on my hub,
oh
or
yeah.
when I joined the
Have
game.
you so I'm actually interested on sort of from the mid range PC perspective. So have you seen any difference between Vulkan and DirectX, or have you not tried that?
I tried. Since Vulkan did come out, I always turn to Vulkan, even if some channels or maybe in Spectrum or some other places they tell that you are not using it, or you can still save this DirectX till they finish it up or something. But I don't know. I always switch to Vulkan. Let the shaders load, and for me, it's pretty running pretty good. I get a decent amount right now on new Babbage for 30 FPS
That's
with my
not bad.
1660 Super. Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, that's a very good graphics card.
yeah,
In all fairness.
yeah, it's a good graphics card, but I just get like 30 FPS in the city. Maybe it drops to 28, 27s on
Yeah,
the travel
I think
system, on
they
the trunks
haven't
and so,
quite
but
gotten it right with because Star Citizen is still pretty CPU heavy, and they're trying to
yeah.
offload more on the GPU, and I don't think they're
Mm,
quite done with it. I don't think it's quite optimized, and that's okay. But just knowing that someone with a 1660 can actually get in and have a workable gameplay experience, I think that's a pretty good milestone for Vulkan because
yes.
even I with my system see a performance improvement with Vulkan, which I could run
Mm,
the game on 60 FPS on DirectX as well, but when I switch to Vulkan, it's way smoother. I
mm,
have fewer frame drops, which
yes.
I think is a significant improvement
Yes.
either way.
And
And
for me, this plays a big role in playability, this
absolutely,
performance-wise, yeah, because now I'm really starting to explore things, yeah,
yeah,
to hang around R-Corp, yeah, to look at the city, look at the locations.
yeah,
I was not really able to do that back then.
yeah.
I was just the guy that flew from New Babbage up to Port Tresla, yeah, and then just did exploring the moons or
Yeah.
these kind of stuff. Yeah, because going down um, to the cities was not quite a
Yeah.
it was a challenge for me. Yeah, I knew that I'm going to stress out my PC and
Yeah.
hit these high hicks on my PC. But what I want to say, Code, is that playability. I want really to look into the new patches that are going to come up. As I heard, they're going to include many fixes and many improvements. Um, and I'm really looking into Star Citizen like never before
Yeah.
this year. I don't know if like CIG just hooked me again or if it's just me, but I really support the project. I really like it. It's my main game, even if I don't play it so often. But I actually don't play anything else. When I play something, I play Star Citizen actually.
Yeah.
So I just played last week. Pretty nice experience. Like in the hangars itself, I get like up to 40 FPS
Oh, very
in my
nice.
system. That's
Yeah, the
for
instance
me,
hangers
it's like
definitely
crazy.
helped a lot with performance.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm really going to enjoy this playability. So yeah,
And
I
I mean,
right now just
with 4.0.1, they did actually fix a whole bunch of stuff, and the game is actually
mhm.
pretty much working most of the time. So they really sort of fixed the most burning issues. Now all we really have to do is fix the stuff that requires a bigger release, and that's, if you have read the patch notes for 402, they're fixing some of that, and I think they're not done. I think we're going to see maybe 2 or 3 or maybe 4 more patches just for 4.0 before they even outline what they want to do in 4.1. And especially given what Benoit said, that they want to do regular or monthly fix and performance and improvement patches, and they want to release features when they're ready. That kind of makes me think, maybe 4.1 is not going to be in March. Maybe it's going to be later when they actually have some features ready to go. And in the meantime, there's going to be patching and patching. And I don't see that as a bad thing, even though some people in the community are saying, oh, there's not going to be any features this year. But we said that last year, and we got quite a few features, actually.
Mhm. Yes, that's true. That's true. So for me, as a main cargo player, yeah, with my raft, I'm enjoying like how the elevators work and how it's set up right now. So with the performance increase, yeah, I'm really enjoying it a little bit more.
Yeah.
The last time I joined yesterday, probably I was not lucky. I hit these logging queues, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and at the end I got 30k, but I was not able to join yesterday. Let's see what's going on this today or maybe tomorrow.
Yeah,
But
weekends usually are pretty busy. I even
yeah,
I tried to log into 402 PTU last night, and even there
mhm,
I got a queue. So
yeah,
so it's pretty busy on the weekends. But I think during the week, especially uh, EU time, I think it's pretty solid. Like
yeah.
when I log in after work, it's usually pretty okay.
Yeah, I tried a couple of servers, EU, USA, and so on, but I always got kicked out after the queue ended, and I was not able to join. Yeah,
Well,
but
matchmaking has always been a bit of an issue with Star
yeah,
Citizen.
yeah. But let's go back to the playability. I think that with the I'm not Evocati. Yeah, I know that there is a build on Evocati, and I think that some elevator fixes are implemented on that build. Pretty curious how that's going to be. Yeah, I'm also looking for the inventory related bugs. Yeah, um, since I'm with the cargo guy and always
Yeah.
kind of putting stuff or looter. Yeah, when I go to these outposts to pick stuff up or to drop stuff up, I always do
Oh,
my
yeah.
runs.
Yeah, I
So
hope they fix the outpost cargo elevators, because
yeah,
running between, like, because I do a lot of hauling, and like hauling between stations, it's fun, but like I want a little bit of variety. Like because I think doing the small planetary contracts is gonna be a little more fun than doing like small interstellar ones. So
Yeah, but maybe this is more personal. Yeah, maybe if we can talk more about how maybe the CIG team is focusing on the playability. That's also pretty interesting. Like for the years that I've been here, I didn't see it so often that they do a spectrum post about bugs. Yeah, and vote them, rank them, and approach these bugs by how much they have been voted for. To be honest, since I'm not so an active player because I'm not being able to right now because my PC maybe, I find it interesting. Like, um, if I it's kind of seems to me that they are differentiating these bugs. Like we have the issue console, why not use these systems that they are in place, but they do this from time to time as they have tried to communicate it, yeah, to find these most important bugs that are related to playability, yeah, but the issue console is still in place. So what bugs are going to be reported there? Like, um, it's for me a little bit confusing. Maybe all the system or issue console is not up to date. We know that they're redoing all these websites or parts or step by step implementing these new UIs within the web page. Maybe there's something behind that that it's going to change. I don't know. Like, but it's good that they are doing it, and I'm trying to vote on them to give my feedback as part of a backer maybe. And actually seeing rapidly, like getting a build on, communicating that there are fixes on it. A couple of that have been reported. Walking on elevators, walking on inventory, like the most voted things lately. So I think that they are really, really committed to actually doing what also the letter from the chairman said a couple of months ago. So
I agree. No, I
yeah.
think the difference between Spectrum Post for bugs and Issue Council is that they will do Spectrum Posts for, or sort of look into Spectrum Posts for stuff that's more critical, where Issue Council is sort of a more of a log of things. Because usually when you see someone talking about a bug on Spectrum, there will usually be an Issue Council that talks about the same thing. And I think that also comes down to sort of individual backers, where some people don't know that Issue Council exists. Some people don't know that we have this tool, because CAG never really sort of tell you about it. Like it's linked on the launcher. They're sort of talking about it on some of the pages on the website, but what I'm missing is in the main menu be like, if you find the bug, go report it on Issue Council. It's just a link, and it opens your browser and it takes you to the Issue Council. And it needs to be big. It needs to be so big that everybody sees it. And that way, people are gonna know that, oh yeah, there is a tool where I can go and I can upvote issues that others have reported. Or I can report my own. I would agree that the Issue Council is very confusing. If you are sort of and I say this with love, a common user who hasn't dealt with this kind of a tool before, then it's going to be very confusing. You are going to have a very hard time finding the bug you're looking for if you want to upvote, and you are very likely to end up creating a duplicate and getting downvoted into the ground. For me as a developer, I deal with this or similar tools all day. So to me, I can usually find what I'm looking for, because it's just a Jira. It's a Jira with fancy graphics. It's
I'm the project manager in an ICT company, so I also work with Jira every day. So I understand it, but back to maybe the issue console. what I don't understand is, for example, when we get the patch notes, for example, yeah, we always get the known issues, but we get them just as textual. Why is there not maybe a link attached directly to the issue console?
Oh, that's actually a good point. I think they should do that. Though I
Yeah,
imagine maybe no, because then if it's a known issue, then I think it's confirmed on issue council, or it's going to be like in progress of being fixed on issue council. So like
but
I don't.
doesn't matter,
Doesn't
Coda,
matter.
because if it's known, it's not known to all. You know,
Yeah, that's
maybe we need to gather data, and this is the point I think that also have been on the ICL lately.
yeah,
It's important about the data. Yeah, maybe it has been reported to from users just on the EU server.
yeah.
How it is played out in another shard or server
I was actually
or
talking about this
another?
right
Yeah.
before you came on. Is that
Yeah,
we need
I
to,
jumped somewhere in the middle of the podcast. Sorry.
and I think that's a very important metric. And I, like I said, as a developer, I would be very interested to see if it's just the US shards or if it's just the EU shards or if it's a specific shard that does this, where these reports are
Yeah,
coming from.
yeah,
And you can't really, you need to have some automated reporting on this, where the
and
game is going to log this automatically, and
yeah,
that just sounds like a lot of pain to do, but it might
exactly.
be necessary so they can gather the metrics. But no, other than that, I agree with you. I think they are doing a very good job this year of hot fixing the worst issues. I mean, we went from me, or at least from my point of view, I was not able to log in. I was not able to get in the game, and now I am able to get in and have a session. They seem to have a plan in place on what they want to do to deliver features and deliver stability, and they're trying for transparency on it. Number one was sort of the post that they had on Spectrum about what they're doing with the current state. Then we had the SC Live, which I saw most of it, but it is very long. It's like 3 hours. So, but good talk. I appreciate that they took that much of time to actually explain and talk about all these things. And then we
Yeah,
actually have a lot of the community managers and a lot of the senior staff at CIG going into Spectrum and replying on feedback and
yeah,
replying on questions, which I have seen an increasing number of, because I browse Spectrum like every day, because
yeah.
usually there's
Same.
something interesting, and either it's gonna make me look into something, or it's gonna let me know about something, or I'm gonna make a video about it. And I
Yeah,
see CIG responses on more and more things, and I very much like seeing that communication on this, because I think CIG realized that this was a bit of a dumpster fire, and more of a dumpster fire than usually. So now they're sort of in a damage control mode, which is good. They are learning how to be a software company, and it is about time they learn how to be a software company.
all right.
But that's
It's
just my
interesting. Yeah.
just my 2 cents as someone who works at a software company. I know it's easy to talk about it from a backseat developer perspective, and I know that things at CAG must be very difficult at times. But uh, I just kind of, with how they're doing things, I see a lot of patterns I have seen at my previous jobs and I've seen in my current job that I know had not very good results, and I see CAG doing it, and I feel like I should be calling it out when I see it, in
Yeah.
hopes that some product owner somewhere sees what I'm calling out, and they do something about it.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. The best feedback is the
yeah,
honest feedback.
yeah, absolutely. So, basic.
Yeah.
Any further thoughts on playability in 2025?
Yeah, maybe to close it up, looking towards it, as you mentioned, every day checking on Spectrum, checking the ICLs, live
Yeah,
shows, and all that content about that. It's interesting to see others' opinions. As you mentioned, quite interesting metric. How it's all come to a point, yeah, because at the end, we hope that all the right feedback lands on the issue console or on these issues, yeah, and they can approach that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Uh, Nice to be part of the show. Yeah, always checked it from the other side. So I encourage all the others. Yeah, Code is very friendly, and I thought that it's going to be a little bit more stress for me because it's the first time, but I enjoyed it.
You did great.
Very
I
friendly.
appreciate you coming in. I appreciate you being in the chat and in the comments on YouTube, and I hope to see you in some next episode sometime.
Yeah, if the topic's about performance, I will be there with my 1660.
That was actually a very interesting insight for me. Is that you know it actually helped. Like because I suffering from success. I can't tell if Vulkan helped. Like I see less frame drops. Like sure that's great, but did it really help people who don't have a high end system? And now I know it did. So that's great.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, thank you again for joining us. I will let you go get on with your evening.
Hey, thank you very much, Code, and see you on the next one. Yeah.
See you on the next one. Have a good night.
Bye.
All right, guys. So that was Pacey. Very nice to have a subscriber and a member of the community on the show. With that being said, I think I actually need to do some housekeeping stuff. Not that housekeeping. If you heard the beeping, that's my dryer, or possibly my washing machine, because it's laundry day. Anyway, so some housekeeping stuff. So, number one, we have a survey going out right now, and I talked to Pacey about it. It's all about my content. How are you happy with it? What would you like to see more of? And it's touching on a lot of the topics I need covered, and where I think I have room for improvement. It is very long. I think it's about 30 questions ish. I didn't count, but it's very long and very detailed. And I will link it on the video, or I will link it on the podcast on YouTube and on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. I will also send the link to the chat on Twitch right now. And the link is in Discord in general as well. I'm just gonna repost the link. Yeah. So there was a lot of questions about how you're happy with my content. What would you like me to change? And Assist is in the chat. So what would you like to change? What can I do better? I want to do better as a content creator for you guys. And it's touching on a lot of things on videos, touching on streams, types of content, monetization, branding, lots of very important stuff. So if you fill that out, I will greatly appreciate it, because it helps me make better content, which helps you have a good time watching my content or listening to my content. Two, the survey requires you to put an email, so I can actually keep track of people only submitting once. So if you fill it out, I'm gonna send you a personalized email with a thank you on or if you're like Pacey and you're coming in here to talk to me, then he got a thank you right away. Yes, that is the correct thing. Cats and my beard are very popular in the current results of the survey. And so you're going to get a personalized thank you email or message if I can reach you. And when the survey is done, which I think I'm going to leave it up for maybe a week or two, then I'm going to pick 5 of the responders, and you're going to get a little gift for me. Or, well, I'm going to reach out to you for a shipping address, and I'm going to get you a little gift. I'm not going to tell you what it is. We came up with it with my social media manager, and she thought it was funny. So you're going to get a little gift. It's funny and it's useful, I promise. I promise you will use it at least once. and when you look at it, you're gonna laugh, and you might actually enjoy using it in the future. So if you are watching this or you are listening to this on Spotify or on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, go fill out that survey. It's really going to help me do better for you guys. Second housekeeping thing, if you would like to join me on Comm Relay, as Pacey said, it's very much fun, and I'm very nice. I'm very polite. All you have to do is join the Armory Discord with the link in the description of this episode, and be in the waiting room voice channel when the show is on, and I will pull you in when I'm ready for you. And you will appear, and we will talk about the topic of the day. I will try to do a better job of announcing the topic of the day ahead of time so people can actually make plans, because I know I've been slacking on that, and I apologize. And finally, if you are watching or listening to this and you're not following the channel or or the podcast, please drop a follow. We would love to have you, and especially if you're enjoying the podcast. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today. I think we're about an hour in on the podcast, and I am pretty happy with my first episode after a longer break. So I think with that being said, that's all for today. Thank you for watching, or thank you for listening. Fly safe, and I will see you in the verse, and I will see you on the next episode. Good night.